It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
And today, 3 questions for Grandma morphed into 4 questions for Grandma, which is interesting because last week it was 2 questions for Grandma. So if we average it out, we're still at 3 questions.
You have a love child hidden somewhere.
By the way, when we were in L.A., Vita Aaliyah, my soon-to-be 8-year-old's front tooth...
Soon-to-be. She's literally 8 years.
Her front tooth came out, and she knows I'm the tooth fairy. So I put it in my pant pocket. And then I was so delirious when I got home. I was sure I put it in this drawer. When I went to look at the drawer this morning, it was not there. So I do not know where this tooth is. And she's been asking me, and trust me, she will not let this go. The only saving grace is if the tooth goes through the washing machine with my pants, it'll be fine, right? It was her front tooth. She's very obsessed about this.
Okay.
Okay, question.
Well, the whole world gives a damn.
3 questions for Grandma. First question from Vita. The first 2 questions are for Vita Aaliyah. How do people get a phone number? She's very worried about this, and she wants to know if she can get a phone number now without a phone. And she wants to know if I know the number.
Listen, I want to name my ninth grandchild without having a grandchild. When you get a phone, you get a phone number with it. It's assigned, I guess, arbitrarily in order. If the number 8 was used already, they have to do a 9. So it's an arbitrary decision on the number, but you cannot get a phone number without having a phone. You can have a car without knowing how to drive, but not a phone number without a phone.
By the way, I got in a habit. I can only sleep with a shirt over my eyes. I do not like any ambient light. But last night, my nose was running so much.
Joel,
and I couldn't get up.
Joel, the guy is going to call
that
in.
I started blowing my nose into the shirt. And it was
and then you wore it.
And then I wore it. I'm thinking about that now because I need a tissue. But not
You are
right
a
now.
real pig. Here is the tissue.
Did you use this tissue?
I don't think so.
You're giving me a... used tissue?
No, I never used it. I checked.
It looks like it's used. On to question number 2, also from Vita Aaliyah. Her grammar is not perfect on this one, but I wrote it down the way she asked it. How did dogs hear so good? Should really be well.
I know. Because nature and I think it's related to... what is it called?
I could have a jackhammer in the house and Mabel wouldn't hear it. She's almost 17.
Wait a second. What is
nature
evolution?
nurture?
No, evolution. For the need of hunting, the hearing developed much better.
What's amazing about Mabel, I'll give you an example. To wean myself off of sweets, I have a few M&Ms every night. She's dead.
Yeah, like pills to neutralize.
She's dead asleep last night. I unzipped the Ziploc M&M bag, and she's awake from the smell. That's how good their scent is.
Yes.
On to the...
It's evolutionary stuff.
On to the third question. This comes from J-Mac, who just turned 3 this weekend. This was interesting. When we got back, but by the way, when we flew to L.A., we flew out of Miami because Ileana wanted to save money. She's like, let's not spend Uber.
That was too funny. You should save that video that you made.
But we landed, she failed to tell me, in Fort Lauderdale. So it was a convoluted trip back home. We had to go, and our minivan was in the shop. When we got to the little things that we take for granted,
Joel,
I have time. The little things that we take for granted, like the minivan being at the mechanic shop, you and I just sit there and go and pick up the car. But for Judah Mack, his jaw dropped. He could not believe he was seeing a vroom vroom hospital, as I described it. And he then asked today, why do vroom vrooms get sick? You have an answer for him.
Yes. Actually, it's not a hospital because they're not live. You use the term of live people for hospitals. This is a place and machines break. Human beings get sick, machines break. They react differently. And these are places where you fix.
By the way, Miami and Austin are the 2 cities. There's a company called Argo, and they are driverless taxis. And they just started without drivers actually doing like pickups, not actual, not actually, whatever the word I'm looking for is. They're not actually picking real passengers up yet, but they're starting to drive. They had a driver in there, and now there's no driver, is what I'm trying to say. Last question.
This is reassuring.
This comes from ZZ Bugs. This was an interesting question. She says, why do candles take a while to melt? In other words, when you light the wick, why doesn't it just melt to the ground right away? Why does it take time?
That's a fabulous question.
Interesting.
Wow, I have no idea why is it going so progressively.
Guess it's just the wick takes time to burn, would be my guess.
No idea, dear. I really don't know. Who could we ask? Are there candologists?
I usually just ask Steve Isaacoff.
Okay.
Who's got an MD, PhD from Princeton and Harvard. Anyway, Karm, how do you like the podcast? It's now over. Until next week.